Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries. Today we're going to be swatching the Diamine FOREVER Inks. So I was browsing on social media and I saw that Diamine was releasing an entire line of inks that are waterproof. So they're made with pigment, they're pigment inks. But more than that, they are in a giant range of colors. So I'm pretty sure we have 2, 4, 6, 12, 14, 16 colors here. And that's a lot of different shades to play with, especially when it comes to waterproof inks. I would say that 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 is the only other brand that I've come across that has a larger range of document ink colors. But I will say those ink colors aren't always the best. I've had some issues with some of the document inks over the years where they bleed through on certain papers or the pigment separates and it doesn't mix in anymore. Yeah, so I'm really interested to see how these perform. And I also kind of want to see how they perform in comparison to the Rohrer and Klingner sketch inks. I am going to be doing the swatches today like I normally do, so we'll see the full range of colors. And then I'm probably going to pick one, probably the black, honestly, or a darker color to test out the actual waterproofness, because some of the videos I saw looked very promising, which is exciting. And another thing, we may mix a color today, may try to mix a certain color that maybe speaks to me, whatever I feel is missing from the range, just because these inks are also meant to be mixable. So on that note, without further ado, let me go over supplies really quick. So for supplies, I'm going to be swatching on the Sanzen Tomoe River paper. This is a blank Hobonichi notebook here. I'm going to be using my standard pipette and MU stamp block to make the swatches. And then once everything dries, I will do a waterproof test probably on a separate page. And then to write all the names, I'm going to keep up with using my Pilot I think it's Iro-utsushi pen here. It has a medium nib, so it's a really fine tip. It's not a fine, but like it writes thinner. So, and I want to see how these inks would perform if they would be like in a more thin typed pen, or if I was going to be sketching with something a bit more thin in terms of nib size, just because these inks are meant for both artists and fountain pen enthusiasts alike. One more thing before I start swatching, these inks are branded as, again, pigment inks. They have a finer pigment in them is how they are listed, and they are also considered light fast, which means they're going to not fade over time. At least that's how I understand what that means. And again, they are considered waterproof. So I'm going to go ahead and arrange these in a bit more of a rainbow color scheme, just because that's how I like to see them, and I can compare colors that are similar next to each other, and we'll just get started with the swatching. Okay, so I'm going to start with the lightest end of the spectrum, which is usually what I like to start with, and this ink is called Solar Yellow. This is the brightest yellow of the group. First impression of this color, it is definitely a sunshine yellow. It is very bright, and flow-wise, this feels really, really nice already. I'm excited to see how these inks perform with all the different colors, but this yellow has a really nice flow to it in general. A color, again, bright yellow. I think this would be a really great mixing color or an artist color. I do not see this as a great writing color just because the yellow is so bright. It would likely be illegible for most people. But again, with mixing, maybe we could mix in one of the greens or one of the blues, maybe even one of the browns, and get kind of a nice muddy color. It's just going to depend on what you would want to do with this. I think it'd be a great bottle option if you like mixing colors. Otherwise, I'd probably just stick to samples for this one if you're not a big yellow user. The next one I'm going to swatch is called Honey Pot, and this is like a yellow-orange looking one. And the color of this one is stunning. I feel like this one almost has a sunset yellow-orange quality to it. It does remind me of 𝗦𝘃𝗏 for some reason, and I think it's just the name that is just pulling me towards that. But, you know, in the classic 𝗦𝘃𝗏, the little bear is kind of like a golden orange yellow color. So I feel like this is close to that, but it also looks like the honey pot he is always dipping his little paws into. Such a nice color. I feel like this is really great summery or spring tone color. Again, it is a bit lighter, but this one seems more legible to me. And I also feel like this one is going to be another really good mixing color. I have heard that you can do painting with these with like watercolor almost. I'm not going to try that today, but maybe this would be a really good like wash color if you wanted to do something in the background so it's not just stark white. Next up, we have another one that's a bit more orangey toned, and this one's called Coral Blaze. And wow, the color payoff on this one is beautiful. Definitely a good corally color. I consider this to be a bit more of a red orange though. It's not quite coral, maybe like a really dark coral. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Pilot Iroshizuku's Fuyugaki minus the sheen, and same with one of the other Diamine inks that recently came out from the black ink vent, and it was called Grotto, I believe. This is reminding me very much of the base color of that ink. It's beautiful. It's kind of a reddy orange. Again, flow on all of these so far has been really, really great, although I am being careful not to put too much ink on my dip nib or in my pipette, just because these are pigment inks and I don't want them to kind of transfer the pigment from each ink to each ink because it is a little bit harder to clean pigment inks off of your supplies. Next up is Tiger Lily, and this one looks to be a nice kind of scarlet color. It is a bit more orange yellow undertoned for a red. The next ink is another red, so I'm wondering if we have maybe like a warm toned red and a cool toned red, which is common in most artistry palettes or watercolors or paint palettes. So maybe that's what they were kind of going for, since this one seems to be a bit more red than I was expecting. Yeah, I like the color. I don't really gravitate towards bright reds like this for writing, but I think in terms of an artist, this would be a really great option to kind of add to the color palette, right? Like it gives another kind of mixing color to create another color. And with that, the other red is just called Cherry Red. And va va voom. This one is Lipstick Red. It is definitely the cool toned red. I was right. So we have a warm toned red in Tiger Lily and then a cool toned red here in Cherry Red. This is really nice. Again, I feel like the flow of these is really good. I feel like they're not watery, which is something I have experienced with some of the other pigment inks I've used. It's just, I don't know, there's something about the texture, at least with this dip nib, right? Like this is solely on like my first impressions here, so I don't know how these would behave in pens just yet, but I really like the texture of how they're behaving with the dip nibs and also with like my little stamp block. I feel like the texture of these is really nice, and it would, I don't know, I feel like the pigment particles are much smaller. It doesn't feel as gritty almost, is the best way I can describe it. Next up is Hot Magenta, the only pink in the range. And this one reminds me actually a lot of the Rohrer & Klingner Sketch Ink Vroni. It is definitely a hot magenta color. For like the cyan, magenta, yellow color scheme that is in most of our like inkjet printers, this is that color. It is magenta pink. That would be a great mixer. So again, if you're wanting to mix a bunch of colors with these and you don't want to get the full range of inks here, I would probably stick with getting the yellow and this magenta so far. I'll wait to figure out the blue when we get to the blues, but both of those colors I feel like are perfect as mixing colors for making a wide range of shades. Just there's so many colors that can come from just a bright yellow and a magenta color like this. Next up, we have one that I am very interested to see on paper. It is called Red Ochre. I'm a huge fan of ochre colors just because I like the bit more brown tones, and I'm curious to see how this one looks. I am a fan. After swatching this one down, I was not expecting it to be as brown as it came off. It definitely reminds me a bit of like a burnt sienna color, or even a bit more of like a red sienna. It's beautiful. A great natural color if you're doing any kind of landscaping work with artistry, or if you're wanting a nice, good kind of autumn red-brown. This is beautiful. Really, I'm a fan of this one for sure. It could even be considered a bit more maroon in some cases, or a brick red. I think this would be another really fun one to mix maybe some of the other colors into to see what we could get as an alternative shade, or brighten it up a bit, or even deepen it a little bit. And after Red Ochre, we have Butterscotch, which is another one that I am very interested to see because it is a brown, and I have really struggle to find a document or a pigment brown ink that I really like. The only one that I consider to be the best right now is Document Urban Sienna by 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏. And the reason I like Document Urban Sienna so much is because it has a bit more of a vintage look to it on paper and writing, like old scripts of parchment with like kind of faded writing. That I love the look that that gives. After swatching Butterscotch, I'm not really a fan, and that's kind of hurting me to say because brown is one of my favorite colors to write with. It's just a good soft kind of tone. Butterscotch is a bit too yellow for me. I think if I mixed red ochre and butterscotch together, I might find my happy medium. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of butterscotch, but the color is a good color. It's a nice soft brown. It's a bit more medium to light toned, and it has a yellow base to it. It's very warm. I think it's a good color. It's just not something I personally would want. I think for an everyday writing color, I would want something a bit cooler or a bit more neutral to give it more of that look that I'm going after. All right, let's move on into the greens. This one is called Hyper Green. And this one seems to be a really good, nice grassy green. It's a yellow green. I think this one would work well if you're looking to do, again, kind of landscaping artistry, or if you're looking for a great bright spring green color. Yeah, I think this one's beautiful, but it's a bit light for me personally. I think I'd want to darken this one a bit if I'm going to do any kind of serious writing. Next up, we have the only other green in the line, and this one is called Amazonia. And this is what I would consider green green. This is a good neutral green, maybe slightly cool leaning towards the blue side. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a great green. It's legible. I feel like if you wanted a good solid green color that is a pigment that's going to be waterproof, or so they state, I think this would be a good choice. I currently have a full bottle of 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏's Document Dark Green that I really enjoy, but honestly, this color might win me over. Amazonia is a better price too, and if it's more waterproof, it might be the option that I would prefer over the 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏. We shall see. Then we have the only teal in the range of the Forever Inks, and this one is called Aqua Surf, and I have very high hopes for this because every other teal that I've tried, okay, not every other, but like all of the teals from 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 do not behave well on paper. The document ones just pill and bleed through all the way down through the page. Like no matter what I've tried it on, it's just never behaved well for me. Holy smokes, this one is gorgeous. Yeah, I'm taken aback by this color. I'm a huge fan of teals over blues just because I like a bit more, I guess, range in my color, and teals usually offer that for me, and this one is a really nice shade. It is a good range in between blue and green. I feel like it's a great legibility color. It's not too dark, but not too light. It looks teal in the writing versus looking more blue or looking more green. Really, really pretty. I'm a fan of this one for sure. Moving into the blue territory, let's swatch Skyline. Okay, the color of this one is a beautiful blue. I'd probably consider this to be the other part of the 3 series for mixing. So Skyline, Hot Magenta, and Solar Yellow would probably be my options if I wanted to make a whole range of colors. This is stunning. Wow. The pigment on this is just so stunning. It is solid blue all the way through. It's a good medium shade. It's not super cool, not super warm, definitely very neutral in color. And I feel like it's just bright but soft at the same time. This is a beautiful blue. I'm not a huge blue person when it comes to inks, especially in writing. I just feel like they're a bit too standard. But if you love blue inks and you're looking for a really great waterproof option, assuming these do live up to the waterproof name, which we are going to be testing, I think this would be a really great choice. I'm definitely impressed with the pigment on this one. Just the color payoff is absolutely beautiful. Then we have the last blue, and this one is called Blue Indigo. And I think this one's meant to be like the blue-black of the group. And with that, after swatching, it is pretty blue-black. I do love the depth of the color on this. I feel in writing it does show up as a blue-black, which, if I'm being really picky, a lot of blue-black inks that say they're blue-black are not actually blue-black. So maybe Diamine was just trying to like cover its butt calling it blue indigo, but this is definitely a good blue-black color. Also is a good blue indigo color. If we're looking at the rainbow spectrum, indigo is in that color range, and I think this one fits that category very, very well. It does have a bit of a purpleness to it, but not so strong that it is like a blue violet, and it is dark enough that it would be definitely more of an indigo color or even a blue black. I really like this one too. I think if you wanted a great everyday standard color and you don't want to write with black or brown, this is an excellent, excellent choice. Next, we have the only purple that they have in the group, and this one is called Passion Flower. I love this color. Wow. Just wow. Okay. Definitely a great purple. I feel like this one fits pretty firmly in just violet. It doesn't really lean any more red or any more blue than I'd say this fits perfectly in just violet. It's a good neutral toned purple. On camera, it may pull a little bit more blue just because that's what I've found with my camera for some reason. It does not like purples, and it's just something I have to battle with, but hopefully the color payoff is coming off accurate. It is definitely a true violet in person. The color is beautiful. I don't think it looks like a passion flower color just because passion flowers are a bit lighter than this, at least the ones that I've seen, but it is very, very pretty, and I'm definitely a fan. I do think I would want to compare this to, again, some of the 𝗬𝗬𝗏 document purple inks. I feel like those have a bit more of a red tone to them, maybe a bit more like a deeper magenta. I don't know. I'm really curious to compare some inks. I don't have time to do all of that today, but this is a beautiful purple color for sure. Then we have the quote-unquote gray. I don't know if I would call this gray based on what I see in the ink bottle or in the ink vial here, but this one is called Smoky Mauve. Okay, when swatching this one, I think I had either a drop of water or something left in my pipette because this one came out very fast. And I don't know, for some reason with the dip nib, I couldn't spell first off, and then second off, I felt like I was not getting enough ink to stick to my nib for some reason. I don't know. I feel like the consistency of this one is maybe a little bit different. Maybe I just had water on my stuff still. I don't know. But the color is beautiful. It definitely speaks to its name. It is a smoky mauve color. It's a dusty kind of pinky red gray, even a pinky purple gray. It's very pretty. I honestly really like this one. Reminds me a bit of 𝗬𝗏 from Pilot Iroshizuku, considering that's a bit more of a pink toned gray, but I don't think they're that similar. I think this one is a bit stronger pink, maybe even a bit more brown. I don't know. This one does have a really nice range of tones to it, and it is a nice soft color. So if you're a fan of writing with maybe like a gray or even like a lighter purple color, even like a brown gray, I feel like this would speak to you very strongly. I personally really like this one. I don't know how I feel about full bottles yet, but I definitely am a fan of this color. And we are going to end off the collection with the black, which I think is great. Every pigment line needs to have a good black, and this one is called Raven. All right, and this one seems like a pretty decent black, very pigmented, comes off very strong black, solid color. There's no kind of washed look to it, at least in the writing. I definitely think it's a good addition. If you wanted to get only 4 bottles of ink to make probably this whole range of colors, I'd say you'd be great with a Raven, Skyline, Hot Magenta, and Solar Yellow. I think those would be my top 4, just because you could probably make every other color here with just those 4 colors, but it's going to depend on your mixing skills for sure. Okay, before I, come back, do dry down swatches, all that kind of stuff, I am going to go ahead and write the name Forever ink down here, and we're going to do some testing after it has dried with water. So I do have some kind of watercolor brushes here that I use occasionally, and we're going to give it a test to see how waterproof these inks actually are. Are they going to budge? Are they going to bleed? What's going to happen? So I'm going to just write out Forever ink really quick here, and then I will be back in maybe about 10 minutes to see if everything's dry. Pretty much everything on this side looks dry to me, but I still have a few over here that are still drying, which is good that dry time wise these are doing pretty fast. Again, I did not do a whole lot of ink on the swatches, specifically because cleaning pigment out of these pipettes is kind of a hassle, so I try only to give it like the very tip. And also with this, like I didn't want to do too much on my nib because I don't like to get the pigment buildup on this type of equipment because it is harder to clean, which is one thing that if you do use these in fountain pens, you will have to clean your pen a bit more, either using like a fountain pen cleaning solution or any kind of like little bits of dish soap if you're being very careful. Just, you know, if you're unsure about pigment inks, do some research before you put them in a pen because they are a bit more challenging to take out of a pen. Much like a shimmer ink, a lot of the particles can get left behind if it is not cleaned properly. Okay, to talk over, I'm going to write out Forever ink here using my B1 Speedball nib. This is in a River City Pen Co. Nib holder in the Wanderlust Abalone by Turnt Pen Co. So yeah, I'm just going to write that really quick and then I'll be back in about 10 minutes and hopefully by then it'll be okay to do some water over the inks. Okay, literally has been 10 minutes. I counted this time and everything is pretty much dry except for one tiny spot on Blue Indigo here, another tiny spot on Amazonia, and then a couple of spots here on my thicker writing. But I'm going to go ahead and test the waterproofness of this ink. Specifically just the Raven. I'm not going to do all the inks, but the Raven is the darkest, so I'm figuring if it works for this, it would probably work for the rest of these. Yeah, so this is a Pentel, sorry, water brush. I think it is the longer one. I have two, but I usually reach for this one more. No, this is the smaller one. So this is the long one. And this is the smaller one. So it's the smaller of the two. Yeah, I don't even have water in this one. Anyways, I'm going to zoom you guys in. We're going to paint literally this water, like use the brush with the water and paint over this and see how well the ink stays. And then after that, I'm going to zoom in and do colors, like showcase the colors up close so you guys can really see what the color looks like by itself, not just on a full page like this. So let's zoom in. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little test here on the side so you can see that my brush is clean. It's just got clean water. And I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna go whoop. Wow. Holy, okay. That is not budged, not once. That's amazing. Okay, yeah. These are waterproof for sure. That is so impressive. I'm going to look at the back of the page really quick. Yeah, no bleed through either, at least on this Sanzen paper, which is also impressive. No bleed through for any of the inks. I'll show the backs of this when I do my final thoughts, but holy crap, that's amazing. That's really cool. I'm just curious. I'm gonna do the rest of the inks really quick, just because I'm so impressed. Yeah, even nothing. That is so awesome. Like not a budge. It's staying put. So if you were looking for an ink that is absolutely waterproof, like that you could paint over, and what I would assume, like if you were to write with it and then drop your journal in some water, the ink would still be there. Whatever you put down is still going to be there. That's amazing. I'm very happy to see that. That's really cool. Okay, let's do some close-ups of these colors really quick. So when we started off, we had a solar yellow, definitely the bright yellow of the group. Very illegible in terms of writing, but I think it's a great mixing color. So I would be tempted to get a bottle of this one just for mixing purposes. Next we had Honey Pot, which I really like. And after looking at it, it reminds me a lot of Rohrer and Klingner's Sketch Ink Carmen. I don't have swatches of those handy to compare right now, but this really does remind me of that kind of nice soft yellowy orange color. Then we have Coral Blaze, and this one almost looks like it has a kind of golden sheen to it, but I don't know if it's just the way it dried. The writing doesn't seem to have any kind of sheen, right? Like it just looks like a pigment ink to me. The way pigment ink dries is a little bit different than dye inks. It's almost like it sits on top of the paper. But the color of this is beautiful, nice red orange. I don't really consider it too corally, but it is beautiful. I really do like this color. Then we had Tiger Lily, which is over here. And this one is a bit more of that scarlet or warm red. It's definitely a more yellow based red, where its neighbor, Cherry Red, is a bit more blue. And, well, blue, right? Like it has blue undertones. So we have like a warm red and a cool red. I think if you just wanted a red to write with, either of these would be fine. If you're using it for artistry purposes, like painting or sketching, I think both would be a good addition to a collection just because it offers that extra dynamic range. I also want to point out that the Tiger Lily has this little bit of kind of almost like a darker red sheen, and Cherry Red has almost a golden sheen to it. Again, I don't really want to call it sheen just because pigment inks are a bit different, but it very well could be sheen. I think it's only going to show up like that if you're doing like solid pigment swatches like this. I don't think it would do it with anything else. Anyways, then we had Hot Magenta. Again, I think this would be another full bottle option if you're looking for a good mixing color. On its own though, it is absolutely beautiful. I think it looks very similar to, again, Rohrer & Klingner's Sketch Ink Vrony. Very nice, solid color, very saturated. I think it's beautiful and yeah, good addition. Then we had Red Ochre, which is probably one of my favorites, honestly, just because it's a good soft brown color that, I don't know, I feel like this color dried to what I wish Butterscotch had dried to. I don't know. It's beautiful though. It definitely is a good red ochre color. It's a good sienna color. I feel like it's just a really good color if you're doing a lot of landscape work or if you just really like a good pigment ink that's a bit more brown. Its neighbor Butterscotch is also really nice. I just think it's a bit too yellow for me personally. I think it's really good for a softer brown color. I honestly, again, want to mix these two and see if we get something that's a better in between. And yeah, I feel like that's going to be my best option there. But it is a good color and I do think it is a nice brown. It's just not the brown for me personally. Then we had Hyper Green, a nice grassy, limey green color. Definitely a bit light. I feel like this one's going to be hit or miss in terms of legibility. It's legible for me, but maybe for some others it would not be. It is just a light green. Again, might be a better mixing color for some, but it is, I'd say, a green that we don't usually see in a pigment ink, and I think that's a good sign because you can mix some other colors with it. Then we had Amazonia, which is a great kind of Crayola green color, a great just standard green. I don't know, it does have almost a black sheen look on top of it, but I don't think it's sheen. I think it's where the pigment pooled on top. I love this color though. I feel like it's a great solid green. I think I will probably end up replacing my Document Dark Green by 𝗬𝗪𝗪 with this one because this one is a bit more of the color I was looking for, and also I think it's behaving a bit better, which is kind of cool to say that we now have more document or pigment inks to play with that aren't limited to only like 2 brands. Anyways, then we had Aqua Surf. This one I probably will get a full bottle of just because I have not found a teal pigmented ink that is this good ever. Like all of the kind of teal or green blue or blue green, whatever you want to call the color, aqua, turquoise, every document or pigment ink that I have found that is this color has either pilled on the paper, bled straight through, or just had really bad consistency. And yeah, this is a win for me. And my fiance loves this color, and I would love to give him a bottle of this too because he writes constantly with this color, and I think this would be a new favorite for him for sure. Anyways, moving on. And then we had Skyline. I think this would be the other ink I would pick if you're wanting to only pick up a few bottles to mix a bunch of the other bottles, or mix a bunch of the other colors. Skyline is a great blue. It's a deep blue. It's a bright, quote unquote blue. It's just a really great solid saturated blue color. It does seem to have a small bit of red sheen look going on, and so does blue indigo. It looks like it had a lot of sheen. But yeah, Skyline has a slight red sheen here. I don't know if, again, that would show up in any kind of writing or if it's just the pigment pooling on the swatch. And then blue indigo, like I just said, is sheening pretty strongly, a bit more of that maroon red color. But the base of this is what I would say is a blue black, and it's a great blue black, and it's a pigment ink, so it's going to be a permanent blue black. You probably watched me swatch all that water all over these. It's already dried down, and I'm very, very happy to see that too. Then we had Passion Flower, the only real purple of the group. It is a nice solid purple, a good violet. It doesn't lean super strong towards the red side. It also doesn't lean super strong towards the blue side. It's a great neutral purple. I like that in the writing here. It looks purple. It doesn't look like it's any kind of other color, which has happened to me with some purple inks. Really great option if you're wanting a good pigment purple ink or a waterproof purple ink, since I know these are a bit harder to find too. Although the 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 Document Purple Violet, I think I prefer that color over this, but I could probably make that color, like mixing this color with maybe like the hot magenta or even a bit of like the cherry red, and see if I can get the purple violet color that I would be looking for there. Anyways, then we have the last two inks here. We have Smoky Mauve. I really like the way this one dried down. This would be another one that I would probably get as a full bottle just because it's a really unique color. And also it's legible but soft at the same time. I think this would be perfect for sketching. So if you wanted to sketch with a fountain pen and then paint over this, this is a lot softer than having like black sketch lines. So yeah, I really like the look of this one. And then Raven, a solid black here, does look very black, but I will say it looks a bit warm. It almost has a kind of yellowness to it. And I don't know if that's just a swatch, because in the big writing down here, it looks very black, like black. But in the swatch, it's pulling slightly more warm for me, which I don't mind. It looks black in writing. I'm just saying if you're really picky about your blacks, just note that this one probably has a little bit of a yellow, a little bit of a brown, a little bit of a green maybe lean to it. It is not strong by any means. It's definitely an undertone, but it is there. For my final thoughts on this, I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. I think these are fantastic. I am so proud of Diamine for releasing these. This is incredible. From what I know, the bottles retail for about $20 US. You can probably find them for much cheaper if you're ordering somewhere from like a UK retailer, like Colt Pens. I did get all of these samples from Van Ness Pens in Arkansas, US, and I paid, I don't remember how much I paid per sample, but it was not breaking the bank by any means. I definitely am very, very impressed with these inks. The waterproof capability of these is absolutely top notch, and I'm very excited to kind of play around, maybe make some new colors and go from there and see which ones I pick full bottles up of, because I definitely think these would be really great options. I was going to mix some colors in this video, but I'm kind of out of time, so maybe in another video. But if you have mixed any of these together, let me know what colors you've created or what ratios you've done. I'd love to hear what kind of new colors could even be made, considering this one has so many to choose from already. And that is another thing that I think is a very big plus for this range, is they have lots of color options. For like the Rohr and Klingner sketch ink swatches, they only have a limited number, but the number that they do have are very easy to be mixed to create other colors. For the 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 document range, which is the other pigment range that I really played around with a lot, they have a lot of colors, but some of the colors are not the best behaving. Specifically, again, the teals from that group, I've had some of their blues be really bad, and also some of their greens and purples. Like some of their inks just, they just have this really weird feathering consistency. They're very watery in some cases, but it's not the whole range. It's only a select few from their document range. Anyways, like I said, I wanted to show you guys the back of the page here. So here we have this side. This is nothing bled through. I am shocked, especially considering this is that new Sanzen paper, which is not the best. But yeah, nothing bled through on that first page. We have a slight teeny tiny dot of the Skyline popping through there, and that could just be a water droplet that made it through or something that softened that edge of the page, but everything else completely didn't bleed through, which is very, very comforting to see, especially given the Sanzen paper issues we have been having this year. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm so excited about these inks. I think this is fantastic, and I am definitely very, very excited to keep playing with them. But I wish you the best, be blessed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.